Vamos jogar Stanley Parable. Nunca joguei esse negócio. Nunca nem... Deixa eu só fechar a janela aqui um pouquinho. Nunca vi o jogo também. Eu conheço o jogo, mas nunca assisti ninguém jogar e nunca joguei também. Vamos ver o que dá pra fazer aqui.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. Stanley was happy.
Stanley...
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Tá. Stanley, você tem um probleminha, cara. Tu tá respondendo quiz o dia inteiro aí, fica complicado, né? O que eu posso fazer? Eu não posso clicar, não posso fazer nada. Rapaz, a sensibilidade tá um pouco alta, hein? Deixa eu ver se dá pra dar uma melhorada. Será que é aqui? Sensibilidade do mouse. Vamos dar uma diminuidinha. Vamos ver. Ah, melhorou um pouco. O que eu posso fazer nesse jogo? Não posso fazer nada? Tá. Beleza, vamos sair aqui da sala então. Ah tá, pelo que entendi, aparentemente o E faz alguma coisa.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Tá, onde fica esse negócio?
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Deixa eu diminuir um pouquinho mais a sensibilidade, que eu tô achando que tá muito rápido. Eu desliguei o computador. Dá pra ligar os outros?
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Fih, você me espera então. Eu quero ligar os computadores. Isso aqui não dá pra fazer nada? Por que eu posso desligar, mas não posso ligar? Tá. Pera aí, aquela ali eu já tentei? Já tentei. Esse aqui. Não abre. É. Tem alguma coisa errada, né? Essa aqui não tem número. Tá, uma nova sala. Vamos ligar o computador da galera, que a galera deixa seus computadores tudo ligado, né? Ó o cara, velho. Tava jogando paciência, irmão. Tá aberto, ó. 425. Ver se a gente acha mais computador. Olha, aqui também dá pra olhar. Não tem nada em lugar nenhum. Vamos ver se a gente abre essas portas aqui. Isso aqui não dá pra abrir.
Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office, because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment.
Não, não é por isso, porque eu quero saber qual porta eu posso abrir ou não. Vou ficar saindo pela primeira porta que eu vejo? Claro que não. Olha só. Eu vou tentar todas as portas.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open
Ah,
doors,
porra.
he entered the door on his left.
Ah, então tem uma escolha. Mas barulho de teclado quando eu aperto na planta. Tá, aquela porta fechou sozinha quando eu passei. Então se eu passar na porta da esquerda, ela literalmente vai fechar sozinha. Tenho quase certeza. Escolha. Eu vou pela da direita.
This was not
Mas
the
se eu
correct
desistir...
way to the
Ah,
meeting
droga.
room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Sala dos funcionários. Eita. Cara, por que nenhuma porta eu posso abrir, cara? Eu queria simplesmente entrar numa sala. Essa é a sala dos funcionários? Vai fechar a porta. Ah.
Truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Não vou ficar parado, então. Quero dar uma olhada nas coisas. Cara, eu não posso fazer...
Yes, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
Me valeu a pena. Qual que é o problema? Eu ficava o dia inteiro sentado naquela mesa apertando os botões que você me falava.
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
Ah, tá. Minha culpa
But
agora.
at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
Parece que você acha que eu vou sair te obedecendo, então. Vozes da minha cabeça. Isso aqui, corredor comprido? Mas o que tem pra cá? Porta. Porta. Interessante, hein? Pô, é mais interessante que essa dali, velho. Vontade de ré. Quero ver a porta fechando. Quem é que vai fechar a porta? Vai.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Cara, que fábrica louca. O que é isso aqui? O que a gente faz? Não consigo pular? Projetos. Mas que caceta? Por que você tem que ficar fechando a porta? E se eu quisesse voltar? Preciso de um cartão. Não tem nada aqui. Queria saber... Tá, provavelmente... Não pule do elevador de carga quando eu estiver andando. Oh!
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps
Isso-
we've gotten off on the
Ah, eu não
wrong
posso pular! Meu
But
Deus!
in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death.
Eu não
Good
pulei.
job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Eu não pulei, eu caí, porque eu não consigo pular. Ah, tá. Ah, legal. Bom, vamos direto então.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Ah, sim, não
What
sei.
could it mean?
Tô indo embora.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
É claro. Se pudesse, pelo
When
menos...
Stanley came to a set of
Não.
2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly
Sim,
well.
vou dar uma paradinha.
Perhaps he wanted
Eu
to
vou pro
stop by
mesmo
the
lugar que eu
employee lounge
tava,
first, just to admire
porque eu
it.
simplesmente esqueci que eu não conseguia pular.
Wow. Yes, this room. But eager to get
É.
back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Não. Tchau.
Stanley was so bad
Direto
at
pra onde eu
following
tava.
directions, it's incredible he wasn't
Ai,
fired
não
years
consigo...
ago.
Ai, mas eu posso me abaixar. Como é que eu pulo, então? Eu não... Tá, eu não posso fazer nada a não ser andar, me abaixar e usar com E. É isso. Tá, beleza.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Ela quem? Isso é voz na minha cabeça? Stanley tá bem louco. Esquizofrenia do Stanley aí tá complicada, hein? Essas portas fechando sozinha, cara. E... Tá tudo escuro aqui. Alguém acende uma luzinha aí, fazendo um favor? Ai, meu Deus. Alô? Ai, caralho!
That's
Tá no
her,
cu?
Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If you can truly
Eu levei um
place your
susto, velho.
faith in another, then pick up the phone.
Eu quero sair daqui. Eu não vou pegar esse telefone. Ah, por que que você quer que eu pegue o telefone? Por que que você me trouxe pra cá? Eu gostaria de sair dessa sala. Tá bom. Eu vou pegar essa merda. Diga. Alô? Alô? Gente?
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your
Ei?
Gotcha. Oh,
Nossa,
come
que engraçado.
on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you?
Por que essa
I'm
foto
trying
não
to
tem
make a point
legenda?
here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Cadê as legendas?
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
História de morte? Bom dia, funcionário. Aperte C no seu teclado.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
Só um minuto. Por que que não tem legenda? Legendas, closed captions. Por favor, aperte K.
Look at him there, pushing buttons,
Ah.
doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Tá, eu não tava seguindo as coisas porque eu não quero ficar apertando letras no teclado. Por que que eu quero? Agora eu tenho que ficar. Ah, ele conseguiu a conquista. Você não pode pular. Incrível. Tá bom, já descobri que eu não posso pular então. Tá, eu não quero apertar M, eu quero ir embora daqui. Porra. Tá bom.
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Tem uma televisão aqui.
And
Ok.
so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
Horrivelmente incrível. Por que a TV saiu dali? Tinha uma televisão ali. Quer dizer, por que tinha uma televisão na cozinha? Isso é uma cozinha? Por que tem um arquivo aqui? Eu quero sair dessa sala.
So, he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
A impressão minha é você tá putinho porque eu não segui suas ordens.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Essa é minha esposa? Minha esposa é um manequim. Stanley, você tá com problemas.
But there is no answer.
Olha,
How
agora
could there
minha
possibly be?
esposa virou
In
uma
reality,
mesa de
all he's
trabalho.
doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
É para dormir. Tá, incrivelmente, vai sumir a cama.
And I'm trying to tell him this,
Oxi.
that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Agora eu vou seguir sua ordem, então. Vou apertar. Não vai acontecer nada, né? Só para eu ter que apertar esse troço para continuar. Incrível. Deixa eu sair daqui. Tá bom, vamos lá.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Algum problema? Alô? Ah! Ah. Mudou a sala. Mudou a sala.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
É. Mudou tudo. Ah, incrível! Você me trouxe de novo para a sala das duas portas. Eu pedi o quê? Que eu vá para a esquerda agora?
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors,
Ah,
he entered the
bom.
door on his left.
Entrei. Olha, sala de reuniões.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Ele tá dizendo que eu não encontrei nada aqui. Olha só, a nossa agenda. Que dia é hoje? Não. Ok. Ok. Vamos sair daqui então. Broom close. Oh, finalmente uma porta que eu consigo abrir.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Tem alguma coisa assim, não é possível que não tenha. Tá cheio de coisa aqui.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Ah, então por que eu pude entrar? Se o senhor controlador não quer que eu esteja aqui.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Eu não estou mais lá dentro. É a única porta que eu podia abrir.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ai, ai, ai. O que tem aqui embaixo? A gente primeiro vai pro lado errado, né? Pra ver se a gente encontra alguma coisa. Um carro!
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Gente, que monografia foi essa na minha
Stanley
cabeça?
began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Meu Deus do céu, o que tá acontecendo com a minha
This is the
cabeça?
story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Caramba! Eu entrei no lugar errado e fiquei numa palestra. Meu Deus do céu, cara. Eu podia ter andado mais naquele lugar. Mas ele não me mandou sair da sala agora? Com o telefone tocando. Parece esse aqui.
Hi, Stanley. Just wanted to leave you a message to let you know there's a few things I need you to pick up on your way home from work today. We need milk, cereal, dish soap, spaghetti, get a thing of sugar, some bread, and coffee beans, whichever ones you like. I'll give you a call if there's anything I forgot. Thanks, sweetie. See you tonight.
Nossa, quem que vai fazer as compras? E que compra estranha é essa? Tá, mas não era pra mim aquilo, né? Mas por que ele foi meu nome? Naquela mesa. E cadê as legendas de volta? Agora ele vai falar que eu tô indo pro lugar sem ele falar nada, né? Eu, incrivelmente eu entrei naquelas salas, fiquei meia hora escutando aquele cara falar.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Tá, vamos rapidão. A gente sabe que a gente tem que passar pela sala de reunião.
Yet there was not a single person here either.
Daí eu vou falar com o meu
Feeling a
chefe,
wave
né?
of
A gente
disbelief,
lembra disso daí.
Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Olha. Gente. Que diferença. Não posso entrar no banheiro executivo. Aqui vai a porta de novo. Aqui que fica a secretária. 2 telefones. Secretária não tá aqui não. E essa porta também não abre, né? Meu Deus do céu, é a sala de quem isso aqui? Do narrador?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Dois, 2845. É só a gente não esquecer isso aí. Mas que teclado, cara. Ah, isso aqui, ó.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
2845.
2845.
Tá. 2 4 5.
Stanley simply began entering random codes into the keypad, knowing full well the ship forgot. But it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself. And Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Tá, tá, posso abrir agora? 2 8 4 5. Tá, o que isso fazia? Isso abrir aquilo? Ah, tá. Barulho de geladeira. Aquilo fecha? Olha, tem um caminhozinho aqui. Não tem não. Não me parece muito seguro.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Stanley, onde é que você trabalha?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Não é possível. Ai, gente, será que se eu errar aqui eu vou voltar lá longe? Tá. O que ele tá fazendo comigo é um controle mental. E eu quero fugir desse negócio.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Será mesmo?
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ah, mas daí você me complica, né? Ah, não, né? É minha morte mesmo? Aqui não parece um lugar muito agradável pra eu entrar, né? Ai, meu Deus. Escolhas. Ah, não. Não, não é. Falei, eu escolhi alguma coisa diferente. Ai, meu Deus.
As the machine whirred into motion when Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the full picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Muito interessante.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Tá, mas eu não morri. E quem que é essa nova narradora?
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Não tem nenhum outro lugar pra eu ir.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Gente, parece meu escritório. É. Foi daqui que eu saí, aí eu vim aqui, atendi o telefone, passei por aqui. Encontrei essa sala, encontrei a porta com as duas escolhas. E esse computador, olha só, é um manual. Um manual não, um museu. Interessante. Corredor. Portas. O escritório. Usa os botões. Créditos. Eu acabei com o jogo. Sim. Zona de guerra. Eu tô no céu? Eu morri? O que tá contando? O que vai acontecer quando chegar no zero? Ah, ele retorna. Olha, a primeira escolha, desobedecer, vai pro lounge. Aí sai, manutenção. Obedecer vai direto. Muda as salas. Meeting room. Oi? Meu jogo travou. Olha que incrível. Esse é o fim do jogo. Ele simplesmente cracha quando você entra na porta. Legal. É isso aí. Opa, estou destravando. O que está acontecendo aqui? Entre. Olha, o jogo está normal, viu? Só que aqui ele buga tudo. Agora eu nunca mais vou saber se isso aqui é o fim do jogo. Esse jogo salva? Eu podia salvar. E se eu salvar aqui? Por que quando eu clico em salvar eu posso apagar, mas não posso apagar? Ele diz que não tem no save game. Ah, agora ele salvou. Tá. Isso, eu vou clicar em recomeçar. Ok. E agora eu quero continuar o jogo. Ué. Quero voltar ao menu. E carregar o jogo. Pra ver se eu consigo continuar daquela parte. Ah, consegui. Trailers. Ah, esse é o primeiro que foi lançado? É, incrível. Olha o computador que é loucura lá. Countdown Desk. Olha, posso descer mais aqui. O que é aquilo lá? Tem alguma coisa lá. Sala do chefe. Ah tá, aqui é aquela parte que eu tava. Então eu dei a volta. E se eu for pra cá? Pra cá eu vou pra aquele lugar que eu vi. Esse é o fim do jogo? Eu ainda não sei se esse é o fim do jogo. Aparentemente é, né? Tem os créditos, basicamente. Perdão, ending. Saída.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time choose.
Alô? Toque, toque. Ah, tá. Ele realmente vai fazer isso comigo. Vou ter que literalmente apertar o botão. Ah... Eu tenho que recomeçar o jogo agora. Interessante. Tá, beleza. Ok, entendi. Aqui ele era
Already this was
literalmente
uncomfortable, and Stanley
fim.
decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
Eu acho que aquele era um fim.
When
Agora-
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Eu vou tentar seguir naquela parte do controle de mente lá.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of
Já sabe mais ou menos
disbelief,
por onde ir.
Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
A gente já sabe a senha, 2845. Vou colocar direto a
Stepping
senha
into his
agora.
manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Porra! Uma câmera, tá?
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Vamos rapidão. Vamos descer aqui já. E vamos ver o que acontece se a gente entrar na sala
Stanley
de controle
walked
de
straight
mente
ahead
aqui,
through the
ó.
large door that read
isso aí mesmo.
Mind Control
Entrar aqui agora.
Facility.
E apertei o botão.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Posso me matar? Câmeras. Pequenos computadorzinhos estranhos. Vou apertar nessa
Now
câmera.
the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed.
Agora
Each
quatro.
bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Vou encontrar o meu.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Ai, que loucura é essa aqui, gente? Então quer dizer que eu sou controlado mentalmente. Bom, com certeza, né? Eu só descia a coisa lá pra eu apertar na tela, eu apertava. Botãozão vermelho. Ah, não dá pra apertar esse botão. 5.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Tá, eu desligo ou eu ligo? Se eu ligar, o que vai acontecer? Eu cheguei aqui e tava desligado. Então é porque alguém parou de me controlar? Então, se eu ligar, eu vou voltar pro lugar onde eu tava. Eu vou desligar.
blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Aê! Já zeramos! Será que tem outros finais? Porque, ó, a gente chegou naquele lugar onde que aparecem os créditos de todas as coisas.
Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room,
e depois a gente chegou no final mesmo. A gente saiu pela portinha. E se a gente for lá e apertar para ligar o controle de mente? Será que acontece?
There was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief,
Vamos lá.
Stanley decided to go up to his boss's.
Eu vou esperar ele falar pelo menos na parte do chefe lá, porque senão ele vai ficar me prendendo na sala.
Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah.
É,
Dark secrets, the keypad. Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Kill surprise.
Cara, achei muito legal isso. Vamos descer. Tá, eu vou lá na parte do controle de
Stanley
mente
walked straight ahead through the large
e vou
door that
ligar o
read
troço.
Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television
A gente já
screens.
sabe disso aí.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Vamos subir o elevadorzinho.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Vamos lá, filho. Quero ligar aquele negócio.
The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery... Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated?
Ah, só tinha um
All
botão
right,
aqui.
I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now?
Green.
Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it on?
Red. Esse tem que ser vermelho, ok.
Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room.
Como assim?
Buttons. No, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button. Or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is?
Deixa no botão vermelho.
Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge, it's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count. Or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life, from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after.
Ai, será que tem jeito de sair disso? Ou a gente só vai ficar apertando o botão e morrer eventualmente?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Então, gente, eu vou ficar por aqui. Eu já fiz uns 3 finais. Foi aquele que eu morri esmagado. Não, foi vários. Teve um que a gente foi lá pra baixo lá, e daí encontrou aquele carro, ficou vendo aquela noieira, aquele discurso. Aí a gente ficou tudo preto e voltou. Aí depois a gente conseguiu chegar naquela sala cheia daquelas coisas, tipo um museu. Depois a gente apertou o botão pra sair. Aí a gente saiu pra... A gente apertou o botão pra morrer explodido lá. Acho que foram uns 4, hein? Será que dá pra fazer alguma coisa com aqueles botões lá? Se tiver alguma coisa pra fazer com aqueles botões, deixa um comentário aí embaixo, dá um like aí. E se tiver alguma coisa pra fazer com aqueles botões lá, eu tento de novo. Valeu, falou!